Ibrahim Traoré. The name that has shaken the foundations of Burkina Faso's politics captivated the attention of West Africa and inspired both fear and hope across the Sahel region. Young, bold, and unapologetically revolutionary Traoré rose to power as the world watched in surprise. But behind the scenes of his populist support and military-led leadership lies a web of internal tension, betrayal, and most recently, a stunning attempt on his life by someone who was supposed to protect him, a member of his own security detail. This is the story of the man who dared to change the course of a nation, and how he narrowly escaped death at the hands of his own guard. Let's begin. It was an ordinary day in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. Government operations were ongoing. Ibrahim Traoré, who became the country's leader following a coup in September 2022, was attending to routine affairs. At just 34 years old when he took power, he became the world's youngest head of state, a military captain who ousted the previous junta leader over what he claimed was a failure to contain jihadist insurgents plaguing the country. Since then, Traoré has positioned himself as a strongman, not just militarily but politically and ideologically. He's criticized the influence of France, distanced himself from Western powers, and sought closer ties with Russia. This pivot toward sovereignty and anti-imperialism earned him a significant following among younger generations and nationalist groups. But it also earned him enemies, both within and outside his ranks. Rumors had been swirling for months that Traoré was facing pressure from factions within the military. Some saw him as too radical. Others felt sidelined, and a few believed he was becoming a liability to the status quo. Then came the incident. It wasn't a battlefield ambush, it wasn't a political ambush, it was something far more chilling. Reports began surfacing from local media and anonymous military sources. During a routine inspection of the Presidential Guard unit, one of Traoré's personal guards made a sudden, unexpected move. Armed and in uniform, the soldier reportedly attempted to open fire on the leader at close range. Whether it was a misfire, a blocked shot, or the quick reaction of other guards, the attack failed. Chaos erupted. The would-be assassin was immediately neutralized by loyal security forces. He was disarmed, restrained, and taken away for interrogation. The room, once filled with order and discipline, turned into a scene of betrayal and tension. What's most disturbing? The attacker wasn't a stranger. He wasn't an outsider who slipped through the cracks. He was part of Traoré's trusted inner ring, a soldier handpicked to protect the very life he tried to end. In the hours that followed, the government went silent. No official press conference, no confirmation. But the absence of a denial only fueled speculation. Was this a lone wolf acting on personal motives? Or was this just the tip of a larger conspiracy? Sources close to the Presidential Guard suggest that the attack was not random. There may have been whispers of growing dissent inside the ranks, possibly encouraged by foreign intelligence or local factions, hoping to destabilize the current regime. The implications of such an attack are massive. If the leader of a military-led government can't trust his own security team, what does that say about the state of internal loyalty? How vulnerable is Traoré, and by extension, Burkina Faso, to another coup or power shift? In the days that followed, Traoré made no direct comment on the incident. But subtle signs emerged. More military personnel were reshuffled, internal investigations were quietly launched, and the public saw a sudden increase in the president's visibility, touring towns, visiting soldiers, and reaffirming his connection to the people. This might have been his way of showing strength, a message to his enemies that he was not shaken, not afraid, and certainly not stepping down. For his supporters, the attempt on his life only reinforced their belief that he's a target because he's doing something right, that he's challenging global power structures, fighting corruption, and reclaiming Burkina Faso's independence from foreign control. But for his critics, the incident is proof of instability, a sign that his rule is under threat, not just from external jihadists or political opponents, but from within his own army. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is far from over. If anything, this failed assassination marks a dangerous new chapter, a chapter where trust is scarce, betrayal is closer than ever, and survival is not guaranteed. Will Traore continue to lead with defiance and determination? Or will the forces, building against him, both seen and unseen, eventually succeed in doing what that guard failed to do? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear. In the high-stakes world of military politics and revolutionary ambition, danger often wears a familiar face, and sometimes the most lethal threats come from within your own walls. Just when the political tension in West Africa couldn't get any thicker, another astonishing story emerges, one that adds more fuel to the fire. This time the spotlight shifts to Mali, a country that, like Burkina Faso, has experienced military coups, rising anti-Western sentiment, and increasing alignment with Russia. And at the center of this story is Assimi Goïta, the colonel who took power in 2021 after leading 2 consecutive coups. But recently, rumors began surfacing that Goïta had mysteriously disappeared from the public eye. No official appearances, no public addresses, no military ceremonies. Days turned into weeks, and the silence became deafening. Then came the whispers. Had something happened to him? Unconfirmed reports circulated that Goïta might have been gravely injured in an attack, or worse, dead. Some claimed he had been flown out of the country in secret. Others insisted he was under heavy protection due to an internal plot against him. The government's response? Silence. No denial, no confirmation. Only a carefully worded statement claiming the president is in good health and continues to perform his duties. But the people weren't buying it, and why would they? In the world of juntas and military regimes, secrecy isn't just a tool, it's a strategy. Leaders vanish, plots unfold, and power shifts are executed without a single televised speech. When the truth finally reaches the public, it's often long after the dust has settled. For Mali, the potential vacuum left by Goïta's absence sparked fears of another coup, or worse, civil unrest. The country is already in a fragile state, fighting jihadist insurgents in the north, fending off sanctions from regional blocs like ECOWAS, and reconfiguring its foreign policy away from Western partners and toward Russia's Wagner Group. If Goïta were truly out of the picture, voluntarily or otherwise, the chain of command would be tested like never before. And that's dangerous. In fragile regimes, the disappearance of a central figure can trigger a wave of opportunism. Ambitious officers, rival factions, external actors. Everyone wants a piece of the power pie, and without strong leadership, the pie gets torn apart, with ordinary citizens paying the price. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Just days after the speculation reached a peak, Goïta reportedly reappeared, briefly, in state media footage. No sound. No speech. Just images of him shaking hands with officials and walking through a military installation. But eagle-eyed viewers noticed something off. He looked thinner, paler, unwell, and still, no live public appearance. Which begs the question, was that footage staged, pre-recorded, or perhaps deliberately released to calm the storm while the truth remains buried? We may never know for sure. What we do know is this: the power dynamics in the Sahel region are reaching a boiling point. Leaders like Ibrahim Traoré and Assimi Goïta are part of a new wave of militarized nationalism. But their rule is not just being challenged by foreign pressure, it's being threatened from within. The assassins aren't always enemies on the battlefield. Sometimes, they're right behind you in the convoy. Sometimes they wear the same uniform. And sometimes they strike when the cameras are off and the world is distracted. The game of power in West Africa is changing, and no one, not even the men at the top, is safe. In the heart of Conakry, the capital of Guinea, something strange happened. Something that shook the foundations of a fragile regime built on force and fear. On the morning of what should have been an ordinary day, gunshots echoed across the Kaloum administrative district. Heavily armed soldiers stormed the headquarters of Guinea's central prison, known as the Maison Centrale. Within minutes, Chaos erupted. Security cameras were disabled, guards were disarmed, and 4 high-profile detainees, all key figures from the previous government, mysteriously vanished into thin air. But this wasn't just a random prison break. This was personal. Let's go back to September 2021. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, the head of Guinea's special forces, staged a dramatic coup d'état. He overthrew President Alpha Condé, a man who had controversially altered the constitution to stay in power. Doumbouya, dressed in combat fatigues and flanked by armed commandos, promised to restore dignity, order, and democratic transition. The Guo people cheered. At first. But as the months passed, those promises faded into the background. Power consolidated, protests were silenced, and the democratic transition? Delayed, repeatedly. Now fast forward to the present. Among the prisoners freed in that bold daylight assault were Claude Peavy, a former military minister, Mohamed Diané, a close ally of Alpha Condé, and 2 others accused of serious crimes, including misuse of public funds and human rights violations. These weren't ordinary inmates. They were political symbols, remnants of the old order. Their sudden release raised one haunting question: who let them out? Government officials quickly labeled it a terrorist act. They blamed unknown forces, trying to destabilize the country. But insiders whispered a different theory, that the escape was orchestrated by a rogue faction within the military. A faction disillusioned by Doumbouya's leadership. A faction that may want to return Guinea to its previous power structure, or take it in a new direction altogether. The most shocking part? The operation was surgical, swift, professional. It wasn't the work of amateurs, but of people who knew exactly what they were doing. People trained in military tactics, people with access. In the aftermath, Colonel Doumbouya appeared on television, calm, composed, but visibly calculating. He promised justice. He tightened curfews, deployed more troops to the capital, and ordered sweeping arrests. But the damage was done. Trust within the military elite was broken. And once again, West Africa was reminded. Even coup leaders can become targets. The escape exposed deep fractures inside Doumbouya's regime. It revealed that he may be more isolated than he appears. That behind the bold speeches and sunglasses, he too is vulnerable. That in a region riddled with shifting alliances and silent betrayals, no one stays in control forever. And here's the bigger picture. Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, all led by military rulers who rose on promises of change but now walk the razor's edge of power. They're young, they're ambitious, but they're also surrounded by hungry wolves, some in uniform, some in shadows. The silence before the next storm is already here. And one day soon, another story will break. Not about a coup that was planned, but a coup that succeeded. Because in the corridors of West African power, history doesn't just repeat itself. It reloads. It was late July 2023, and the world's attention suddenly snapped toward Niger, a country often overlooked in global headlines. President Mohamed Bazoum, a Western ally and one of the last democratically elected leaders in the Sahel, had just been overthrown. But what made this coup different was how silently it happened. No heavy gunfire, no televised threats, no chaotic street battles. Just one statement, calmly read on national TV by a man named General Abdourahmane Chiani, head of the Presidential Guard, the same man who had sworn to protect President Bazoum. Let that sink in. The person responsible for defending the Adi, Republic's highest office, had betrayed it from within. The very walls meant to shield Bazoum became his prison. He and his family were taken hostage, cut off from the world, and confined in the presidential residence under armed watch. But the bigger question was why? Chiani, a career soldier, had been head of the Presidential Guard for over a decade. Some insiders believed the coup was a preemptive strike. Bazoum had reportedly been considering replacing Chiani due to rising tensions and distrust. And Chiani? He struck first. But there's another layer. France, the US, and the EU, all had military presence and billions of dollars invested in Niger for counterterrorism efforts. Niger was considered the West's last strategic ally in a region, falling under the influence of Russian-backed groups like Wagner. The moment Bazoum fell, panic rippled across Paris, Brussels, and Washington. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a coup, it was about a global power shift. Almost immediately, anti-French sentiment exploded on the streets of Niamey. Protesters waved Russian flags, called for Wagner's support, and demanded the withdrawal of foreign troops. The message was loud and clear. The people wanted a break from neo-colonial control. But beneath the surface, not everything was as it seemed. Some reports claimed that factions within the junta were divided, that there were disagreements about aligning with Russia versus maintaining some ties with the West, that even within the military leadership, trust was eroding. And then came the whispers. A small faction of officers still loyal to Bazoum had reportedly attempted to free him from house arrest. The attempt failed, barely, and several were arrested or disappeared entirely. The junta tightened its grip, silenced the media, and increased surveillance. Chiani, now calling himself the president of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, promised a return to civilian rule. But no one believed it, because the script was already written, and it was playing out just like it had in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Promises made, deadlines missed, power secured, and behind it all, new patrons emerging, patrons with their own agendas. As Wagner eyes the Sahel for its minerals and strategic access, and as ECOWAS fumbles with threats of intervention, the people of Niger are left in the middle, hostages not just to a coup but to a proxy war between East and West. And Mohamed Bazoum, still in captivity, still waiting, still wondering if anyone will come, because in the end, loyalty in politics is a currency that devalues faster than gold in a firestorm. And in Niger, like the rest of the Sahel, the fire is already burning.